pseudo classes. In that we learned how to use active, how do we use link. We need to implement the classes hover, active. So these are the basic pseudo classes we are having. And focus. So we learned focus. And one more important pseudo class we have, that is target. This already I showed you while working with hyperlink with example. So no need to learn again. Target is already we learned. That example already we discussed in hyperlinks actually. In hyperlinks, we already know that target. If you remembered intra-document links, in the intra-document links, so how we can configure navigation, right? Within the page to handle the navigation. So we learned about if there are no content more than screen, then navigation cannot happen. Then we have to handle by manually, we need to do that. So that means if this is the example we learned. In this example, already we learned target. I given you this example already. So that means if I click on CSS, CSS will highlight, JavaScript will highlight, so HTML will highlight. Already we discussed this one. So this is nothing but when this area becomes target, it will apply some effect. So already here we used that target class. So topic, initially how it looks. When it becomes target, then how it should look. That we designed one example. Already we explained about the target selector. Already we know the target selector. Next important in the pseudo classes, we have UI element states pseudo classes. So UI element state pseudo classes. UI element state pseudo classes are nothing but element state. Element state means disabled, enabled, read only, checked. This comes under state. That means we can apply effects. So if it is, we have enabled. So if it is disabled, and if it is read only, and if it is checked, based on the state we can apply some effects. So that is enabled, disabled, read only, checked. These are the options. So let's see one simple example here. That means we can apply effects. So we can apply effects, so with the help of these options. So let's add one file here. So let's add a new file. Okay, and we are using the option some state.html and doc type HTML, head and title state. Okay, in the body section, so we are adding some content. Suppose enabled, disabled, these kind of things we will see regularly. Suppose username and a text box, input type is equal to text, and we have password. So like input type is equal to password. And sometimes here we can have a button. I want the button register. I can make the button enabled and disabled. we can make the buttons enabled and disabled. How we can make the button enabled and disabled? We have enabled property. By using the enabled property, we can apply that. So what we can do is, by default, we have the button. Observe, normally it looks like this. Now we can disable that button. So situation wise, in JavaScript, we have to disable them with logic. Here we can disable, just we can use an attribute disabled. If it is disabled, then automatically it looks like this. So we can change a lot of other appearance also. If it is disabled, we can change its appearance. Enabled, another appearance for button or text box anywhere. So what you can do is, we can apply a style, and here we can write button enabled. If button is enabled, so we will keep some background color as some red and the color as white and the border as none. So we will remove the border. Like this we will apply. If it is enabled, and if it is disabled, then button we can add disabled class. It is implementing disabled class. If it is disabled, then background color we will put gray and color as white and border as none. Not only that, we can apply cursor. Cursor we will keep as some not allowed. Not allowed is the cursor. That means when you move the mouse pointer onto it, you can see this is that. There is no border also. When I move mouse pointer onto it, it says not allowed. It shows the symbol not allowed. It shows that not allowed. So that is, so when you move the mouse onto it, it shows not allowed. So generally, so that is on mouse over, it will display that. Mouse over, it will display that. But when it is removed with disabled, if it is enabled again, it will have this color again. So we can change cursor also. Suppose if it is enabled, cursor we will keep as hand. That means grab. Grab is used for hand symbol. You can see hand symbol will come. Cursor will be hand symbol. So if it is disabled, enabled, depending on the state. Generally, we can disable, enable with JavaScript. We will write JavaScript logic also. So through that logic, we can disable, enable. And whenever it is disabled or enabled, automatically it will apply these effects, change the effects. So they will change according to the state, disabled state, enabled state. And for text boxes, these we have read only also. So read only, we have read only state for them. Suppose if text box is read only, then for read only, different color I want to give. That means we can simply write, so if input type is equal to text and it is read only. If it is read only, then background color, so some color as gray. So that is for read only, the color will be gray. It will be displayed like. If it is not read only, I remove that read only, then its appearance will be again normal. If read only is added, then automatically it will be displayed like this. You can change the appearance for read only. You can change the appearance for enabled, disabled. And we can change for checked also. Checked already we learned. If you remembered, checked I told you with checkbox. That means, for example, here I am writing a data term, terms of service. and here we define data definition. So input type is equal to checkbox, and I put a span here. So I accept, and ID is terms. Now important is if user selects I accept a checkbox, this should be green. If not checked, it should be red. Already we learned it. So then what we have to do, we have to write here hash terms. Terms is checkbox. If it is normal, then the adjacent span we will keep color as red. So hash terms, if it is checked, then adjacent span will be color green. If checked, it is green. If not checked, it is red. We can also verify whether it is checked or not. So now you can see now here, so it is red color. When I select the checkbox, it will be green color. We can handle that colors changing depending on checked. Already this also we learned. So some examples already I given you while learning about several form elements, we discussed them. So this checked also we know. So enabled, disabled, read-only, checked. These are general element state. We also have UI element validation state classes. Validation state classes means, so we have like valid, like invalid, so like required, so required, like optional, like in range, like out of range, all these validation classes. That means depending on validation, they can apply the effects. Depending on the validation, they can apply the effects. These are validation related classes. So depending on the validation, they can apply the effects. Validation means if it is valid, if it is invalid, if it is required, if it is optional. Those things depending on the validations that you write for the controls. For example, see, I will remove these effects. Okay. This is ordinary. Okay. Now see, for this text box, so we are giving some validations. So for text box, we are giving some validation, like username. So for text box, we will give like username is required. Okay. And suppose password I defined as pattern. So A-Z, that means A-Z. So, and 4 to 10, uppercase 4 to 10 it should be. Something like that we return. Now important, when user is entering the details, if it is required, one color should come. That means I give an ID as txt name. So here I am writing hash txt name. That means if it is required, if it is having required, then we can simply put some color, or we can also display message beside it. So that means we can put a span and we say name required. This message we can write. Now what we will do is, here if it is required, then plus span. That span should be displayed. That means display as some block or inline we can use. If it is having required, it will display that name required. I entered some name. So then usually when we enter the name, then this should not be displayed. This should not be displayed. So we need to verify whether it is displayed or not. That means hash txt name, if it is optional, then the span beside it, display, we have to set to none. But generally it should not be displayed. This is optional. Optional means when required is not entered, it will be optional. So that is not the condition actually. That means if required is mentioned, we have to verify whether it is required or not. And based on that, we should display. So txt name and the span beside it, initially it is empty, but it is still displaying because it is required. We entered some name, it's still displayed. It is unable to verify whether the name is entered or not. So that means this is not for conditions. This is only for effects. Such conditions we can write in JavaScript, like messages, hiding them, unhiding them, and changing the messages and displaying them. These all things we can do not here. Here only effects. So many times people ask this question, I want to change message, I want to display message. They are not good with CSS because CSS cannot handle conditions. Only dynamic state they can handle. So whether value is there or not, you have to verify them and validate them. That is the reason these kind of messages you will do in JavaScript. Here you can apply effects. That means better what we have to do here, simple. If hash txt name, so dot required, if it is required, then put so border 2 pixels, solid red color. And here I defined some box shadow. I am adding box shadow, 2 pixel, 2 pixel, 3 pixel red color. If it is required, and if it is optional, then we will add effect optional. Then we will change this to normal, so yellow color. So we will change this to normal yellow color. That means if it is optional, yellow color. Currently it is required. Required means it will be in red color. That's the option we define. Now when I enter name, it will not change the color. That you have to do by using JavaScript. Here it is applying the effect only. Okay, when I remove this required, then automatically it becomes optional. For optional, it will display one color. For required, it will display another color. Such effects only we can apply. So if I want to show message that please enter name, okay, name accepted, such things we have to verify by accessing the value using JavaScript. Here we can just apply effects. That is important. Another option is generally when you are trying to display these options, we can also configure valid or invalid. If it is valid or invalid. So depending on that, state can change actually, valid or invalid. That means, for example, so password, I given pattern. So if pattern is not matching, it will return invalid. If pattern is matching, it is written valid. That means that is state. So what you can do here, so let's say ID as txt password, pwd. Okay, here I am accessing hash. If txt pwd is invalid, if it is invalid, then we will put red color. So that means, so border, I will keep like this, red color. Okay, if it is valid, then hash txt password pwd dot valid. If it is valid, then I will keep green color. That means I will set green color. So we are changing the color if it is valid or invalid. Now automatically that can return the state. Suppose you see password. So for password you can add. So for password you can add multiple validations like required. Password is also required. Now it shows red color because it is required. I entered password, still it is red color. Why? Because it is not matching with the pattern. According to pattern, it should be in uppercase letters. You see, I am entering uppercase letters, minimum 4 characters, then it will be green. It will be green. If I am not matching that, then automatically it will be red color. So it can display that effects. We can put a message also now. We can display the message also if we require. So that means if it is not defined, then it is invalid. If it is according to the condition, then it is valid. More than 10 characters, something wrong you entered, then it is invalid because only uppercase letters allowed. Only uppercase 10 characters allowed. More than 10, again it will show you red color. That is how we can define. So this is very good. So we can use this valid, invalid. If required problem is there, min length problem is there, max length problem is there, pattern problem is there. If any problem occurred, it will return invalid. Then it will apply that color. If it is valid, you can put even message also. You can put a span. You can show the span, hide the span. Just like previously we discussed, we can define that. This is validation state. We have valid, we have invalid, we have required, we have optional, we have in-range, out-range. In-range, out-range is for numbers. Suppose anywhere you are allowing numbers, in-range, out-range is for numbers. Mostly, for example, suppose I added a data term, some age and a data definition, input type is equal to number. So number. And we want, so min is equal to 15 and max is equal to 30. So if the age is not entered between that range, it should show some error. So same concept we can do now. What we can do is we can simply access that ID txt age. So we can apply the same effects. That means here we will put hash txt age. Because it is a number, you can use in range. If it is in range, then green color will apply. We will apply green color. If txt age is out of range, then we will apply the red colors. So red color we will apply if it is out of range. That is depending on range. Range can be applied for number. So for min length, max length, you can use valid, invalid. This is for number. You can configure for number, in range, out range, you can handle that. Right. So that means you can see now here, I entered some option here. Suppose 12, it shows red. So I entered some 17, it's okay. I entered 29, that's also okay. I entered 32, that's not okay. 31, not okay. 30, okay. That is the range. It will verify whether the value you defined within that range or not. The value you configured within that particular range or not. It can handle based on that. That is depending on the range you can configure and define the selector. Usually that is range selector, means how we can manage the range, in range and out of range selectors. That is depending on validation state. General state, enabled, disabled, read-only, checked. Validation state, invalid, valid, required, optional, in range, out of range. These are all classes generally we apply for that. These are validation related CSS classes. We have another important structural classes. Structural pseudo classes we call them. Structural pseudo classes are nothing but structural pseudo classes means depending on where they occur. Is it first element? Is it last element? Is it second element? Is it even element? Is it odd element? Depending on which element, we can apply that effects. That means its location, depending on its location, we can apply that. For example, so what are these structural selectors? Let's see. I will add structural. Structural selectors depending on where they occur. That means is it one first place, second place, depending on that. So we are defining suppose head, title. So structural, okay. And in the body, let's create an ordered list. So list item, some item 1. So let's add some options like here. So item, so here we defined some 2. So 3 and 4 and 5 something. Now I want to apply effects. We learned about how to apply effects for adjacent. We learned about how to apply effect for all. But suppose I want to apply for the first child. Then you can simply write the effects style. And we can add the option here. Generally, how you define the option for list item. Generally, if I say list item color is red, every list item color will be red. But I want only for first one. Then we can add an option first child. First child. First child, it will apply only for the first one. First child is to apply only for the first one. So last child. So last child. Last child. It is only to last one. So color. So some color green. So that means only the last one will be green color. So we can apply only for the first one or only for the last one. You can apply to any level number. Any level number. That means we can use li. We have an option nth child. Nth child. So and we are applying color red. Which level number you have to tell. Suppose I said 2. That means for the second level it will apply. I said 3. For the third level it will apply. So for the fourth level it will apply. You can apply like that. This nth child, actually you can use the words like even. I am using the word even. That means for even occurrence it will be there. That means for the second one, for the fourth one. I am applying for ordered list. You can apply for table. You can apply for table rows. So anywhere where you have a list of options, you can apply. You can apply for table rows, the colors. So that means for even color, odd color, different appearances you can define. So you can use the number or you can use the words even or odd. You can use the word even or odd. And you can see for odd occurrences it will apply. 1, 3, 5. For even one color, for odd another color, you can apply. Generally, if it is a table, you can write TR. For table rows, we can have even occurrence, odd occurrence. Like that, you can configure. That means you can apply to specific. So we have nth child. Actually, we have list item nth of type. Nth of type. Nth of type is nothing but, suppose I said 2. Then color is equal to red. Then nth of type means, generally nth child means it will apply to specific. If you say 2, it will apply to 2. So this also here it is applying to 2, but it have the ability So you can say 2n. That means it will repeat for every second one. It will repeat for every second one. Generally, child will apply only once, but for every second one, it can apply. That means you can see nth of type. So when I write like this, and you can see that it is going to apply for every second one. But means for every two options, it will apply. For every two options. Suppose I have another item. So I have another item. So 6, and we have 7. So we have 8. So some items are there. Then every two items it will apply. Nth of type means every two items it will apply. But it is starting from second one. It is starting from second one. I can say +1. That means it is starting from first one. You can see it is starting from the first one. Every two items it will apply. So I say +2. That means it is starting from the second one. You can say +3. It is starting from the third level. For every two items it will apply. You can apply for every two items or every three items you can apply. It depends on your requirement. For every three items it can apply. So that is nth of type. So nth of type is used to apply for every occurrence. Nth child is for only specific. Similarly, we have nth last of type. We have like option nth last of type. That means here I given li nth last of type. Nth last of type is nothing but last of type means so it will apply from the bottom. That means I say 2n and the color is equal to red. It will apply from the bottom. Generally it will nth of type will apply from top. Nth last of type will apply from the bottom. From the bottom it should start with 1. Then I will give +1. Then you can see from the bottom 8 it will start. Then 6, then 4, then 2. From the bottom it will apply. If I use nth of type, it will be from top. So nth last of type, it will be from bottom. It will be from the bottom. So you can apply even to the last child. That means nth last child. So that means it will apply the effect for every nth reference from the bottom. From the top, from the bottom, you can define. So we have an option like nth last child. So we have an option like nth last child. And 2, that means 2. That means it will apply from the bottom to. But I want every occurrence. Then nth last of type. We have to use nth last of type. So 2. Then it will apply for every 2. N we have to use. It will apply for every second occurrence. So that means you can apply for even occurrence. You can apply for odd occurrence. You can apply for any specific element. Is it 5th, 6th, 7th? You can write the level number. For that, you have all these options. So we have the options like we have first child. We have the option like last child. We have the option like nth child. So we have option like nth of type. So we have options like nth last of type. So we have the option like nth last of type. And we have like nth last child. So nth last child. And you have all this nth last child. All these are the numbers so that you configure. So this is very important, especially if you want to apply for any specific element inside it. Generally, we do that by using elements. We do that by using the elements like table, rows, ordered list, unordered list, and everywhere. So generally for tables also we use this regularly. configure this regularly. If tables are there, rows are present. For even row, one occurrence. For odd row, another occurrence. Generally, for tables also, we do this regularly. Suppose you see table. So for this table, I added a border and some width. So is equal to some 400. And in that table, we have T head. So TR, TH, some name, and TH, some price. So that is the option we defined. And we have like T body, table body. And in the row, we have TD. This is for some TV. So some price. So okay, some TD, some another price. Like this, some values are present in the table body, some rows are added. So this is mobile. So some different values are configured. And another row. So some shoe, some price. Okay, and we have some another option, some watch. Okay, now we want to apply some different colors for that. So that is the table. Then simply, generally, we can heading different color we can give. That means T head. In the T head, TR. In the T head, TR. So background color. Suppose I given as dark cyan. So that is the color. And color as white. And this is for the heading. For even occurrence, odd occurrence, then what I will do here is in T body. So T body. So we have TR. And for TR, so we are configuring. So nth. So nth child. I written as even. Then so the background color. So light cyan. So light cyan. I am applying some light cyan. So that means for even occurrence, it will apply that effect. For even occurrence, it will apply that. For odd occurrence, you can apply different. That means in the table body, in the row. So for odd occurrence, so I can add some, say another effect, suppose light yellow color. We have a combination like this. And you can see, you can mix up for it RGB and all. It will apply like that. So we can have colors appearance for different occurrences. For even occurrence, for odd occurrence, we can apply. So depending on the requirement, you can configure. So that is generally done by using these structural selectors. So we have the structural selectors. These are all structural selectors. And in the structural selectors, you also have an option like we have root. Structural classes, we have root and we have empty. Root is to apply to entire body section. That means the main root level. Suppose if I say here root, that refers to body actually. Suppose font family, I said Arial. That means it is going to apply to entire body section. Entire body will be applied. Empty is used for blank. For example, suppose in the table cell. So suppose in the table cell, this cell is empty. Generally empty, there is no value provided into it. If it is empty and there is no value provided into it, now you can see that. So it is empty. If any container is empty, you can put some color or effect into it. That means what you can do here. So you can write like this. If TD, that means is empty. That means this is empty. That means if table cell is empty, then I can put some background color, some gray. So that is the background color gray if it is empty. So then you see here it is not there. Why? Because general the empty values are configured, suppose I said ampersand NBSP, that means that is blank space, that is empty space. Then you see here, it is not configured with the empty. Why? Because usually empty means whenever you are applying the effect, you have to make sure that that value is not configured inside that row, inside that cell. Because generally, even you put a space, so it will look like empty. Even you put a space, it is not empty. It will be taking as value inside it. Generally, empty is defined. Empty is defined. If there is a blank space, that means if there is blank, then it will apply. That is where people are very much confused. Because see, if I use space, that means a space is there. It is not empty now. Now people think that, sir, I am using space, empty is there, but it is not working. Because it is not working because it doesn't mean that empty. It is having a space. Ampersand NBSP is also a space. It is having a space. That means empty means complete basic empty. Empty means it is not provided with anything. Even it is not provided with a space, then it is considered as empty. This is empty cell. This is empty cell. If you use a ordinary space, then it is having some space. It is not empty now. So that is why you have to be careful. Many times you think that it is not working, but actually it is working. Actually, if it is empty, we applied a color. Generally, later you will see that empty, so we can put a content inside it. So saying that NA, not available. The content will be displayed inside it. That approach we will see later. We can apply that through some more CSS we have to learn for that. We can put a content there. I will tell you how to keep the content. Initially, we are keeping some color. So that means some color, so some gray. That is the color we are applying. Later we can put some text or message that this value is not there. For that we need to learn some more concept. Initially, empty means, remember, you put a blank space or ampersand NBSP, it doesn't mean empty. It means you left it empty without anything. Not even a space also. So that is empty selectors. That is how we have to configure. These are all comes under structural selectors, structural pseudo classes. We have another important is pseudo element selectors. We have pseudo element selectors. Pseudo element selectors. Now these pseudo element selectors, usually they have, you have to implement. We need a double implementation actually. That means inheritance. Generally pseudo element selectors, you have generally class means we have to implement with colon. Now we have to use an additional implementation. So that is double colon. So this indicates that you are binding here a class. You are binding a class and you are implementing multiple classes. You can implement multiple classes, multiple effects. So this approach is very much used for pseudo elements. We have like pseudo elements like first line. We have like first letter. So we have like before. So we have like after. And we also have options like, we can use options like negation selectors are there. So we have like selected. We have like options like placeholder. All this comes under pseudo element selectors. So pseudo element selectors. Generally, these are used for pseudo element selectors. These are pseudo element selectors. Technically, that's how we have to define the pseudo element selectors, right? So generally, how we can configure that, how we can define that. So how we can add add that. We will see that. So pseudo element, first line, last line, and first letter, last letter. We can apply first letter, first line. We can apply some effects. So let's see. So we are adding some paragraph, some pseudo. So here we are adding some paragraph or define. Head, some elements, so title, so element selectors. Okay, in the body section, suppose we are having some paragraph. So some paragraph is there, we will copy and paste some paragraphs. So we are copying some paragraph and we are adding that here. So let's add some paragraph there. Now generally we can apply effects based on that. So occurrence, we can apply that. So let's run this and see. Suppose I want to apply for first line, we want to apply for first character. Then generally we can define the option style. So I can give here an option. So the option is, so for the first character, first line, we want to apply the effect. So for paragraph, so first we have to use first letter, and we are applying here color as red. That means it will apply color for the first letter, so that is D. You can apply color, you can change the font size, some 40 pixel, you can change its appearance, right? So individually want for entire first line, that means the paragraph. So first line, we can apply for first line. First line color is some blue, you can apply for the first line. So you cannot apply for second line, third line, fourth line like that. You can apply either for first character, first line. You can configure for the first character and first line. You can define that. That is first line, first character. We can also use an option here. So before, after. So we can also use an option selection. So background color yellow. That means what happens here is whenever you are selecting, the background color will be yellow for that selection area. For that selection area, it will get that background. When you are selecting, it will get background for the selecting area. So that is selection. That is the background area for the selection. It is accessing and using it. So we can use selection. So first line, last line. Placeholder, you remembered already, I told you, that is used for controls. That means you have a name. So we have an input type is text, and it is having a placeholder like name required. That is the placeholder. And usually what happens is I want to change the color of the placeholder. Then obviously you can do that by using so input, so placeholder, and we can apply so color as red. Then automatically the placeholder color will change. We can apply that. So in the form elements, when you are defining a placeholder, you can configure that. For the selections, we can change the background colors and or effects we can define for that while selecting. We also have options like before and after. Before and after, generally we use this for displaying navigation bars or anything. So for example, I have a nav area. In that we have an unordered list item like home, another list item like about, another list item like contact, like this. Or so we have like some HTML. So after this order, we are displaying like CSS. So like bootstrap, like this. We have a sequential order like, so JavaScript, something like this we define. And when we want to display this navigation, so HTML, bootstrap and all this. So I am writing here, so unordered list display as flex. It will keep the flex display. And here we are adding some list item. So list item, some margin left is suppose 20 pixel. So that means left margin 20 pixel. And unordered list style as none. That means it is not having the list. You see here, so for every list item, we can add after every list item, I can add here a content. I can add a content. Content I can define as, so arrow. After every list item, that arrow will be added. That's how we can configure. I can reduce this margin. So, and you can see it will be like this. So you can remove this, and after every list item, you can keep this arrow. But after the last item, I don't want. You can put here like this, after, or you can put before. You can put before. Before, you can add that symbol. Then you can, it comes before. You can use before or after. But I don't want before the first item. Before the first item. In that case, we can write like this, li. So li, so we have to define nth child. That means we have say first child before content we will keep as empty. That means first child before it is empty. It is not there. You can say last child before it can be empty. First child before it can be empty. So that is generally how we can configure the first and the last child. You can find this kind of scripting navigations. So we have to handle this situation for that. That is generally used for this mechanism. So usually before after, you can add content. You can add content. You can add effects. You can define. You can keep margins, or you can just keep some effects. You can keep some that you can define by using before after. Next important is another in the selectors. These are all comes under the pseudo element selectors. And so selection. Here we have an option like to F. We hang selector is named with lang. This is used for languages. That means sometimes in a page we can display so content from different languages like French, like German, like English. Suppose you are presenting a paragraph. This is para 1. Another paragraph. This is para 2. One can use a French English, another can use a German English, another can use US English, like that English. Now for that actually we use an attribute language. Language I can say EN, that is for English. We have a language like FR, that is for French, like that we can define. Based on that we can change the content. That means it is French English, German English, like that. Now what the point here is, wherever the English language is used, so this paragraph appearance must change. That paragraph appearance must change. That's what we want to apply. In that case, what you can do is here, I will remove this first letter and all. Yeah. In that case, what you can configure here is, so we can simply use the selector. You can write the selector. That is, paragraph can have a language selector. Language selector, if it is English, then I want to change font style to italic. So, or bold, I want to define the font style as italic or bold. I need to configure that. And you can see that it is going to apply that only for that. So only for that. When you are defining several languages, depending on the language, we can apply the effect. That is actually done by using this language selector. It is used only on the sites that have multiple languages content presenting on them. Based on that, we can apply the effects. That is actually language selector. We have a negation selector. Negation selector is used for not. It is a negation selector, not. That means, for example, so negation selector is also important. Suppose we have some paragraphs information. So let's keep here, so para 1. And we are adding, so something here. So we are adding like, so para 1 and para 2 and para 3, para 4, para 5. We are adding this. Now the point is, for one paragraph, I have an option class. I have an option class effects. I want to apply color to all of them other than these effects. That means other than these effects, I want to apply everywhere. It can have class, it can have ID, anything, your wish. So that means now how to define that? So I will put a paragraph. It can use not negation selector. In the negation selector, we can just write, if it is not effects, if it is not having the ID effects, then put the color as red. That means it will apply everywhere other than this. Then it can apply everywhere other than that. You can use a negation selector. It can configure negation selector. Negation selector means it is going to apply the effect everywhere other than what you have specified. That is what actually you can use attributes also. That means not only ID, you can use attribute also. That means, for example, I have text boxes. So let's keep a div. So I have text boxes. Suppose, so name, so one text box is there. Input type is equal to text. Okay. So age, so that is also input type is equal to text. Something like this. And some salary, that is input type is equal to text. So all these are text boxes defined. Now in that, what happens is, one text box is disabled. Age text box is disabled. Other than disabled text box, I want to apply effects for others. Then we can write like this. We can write input. So we can write input and not the attribute is disabled. We have to write in a square brace, disabled. If attribute is not disabled, then background color I will put as yellow. That means other than disabled, all will be yellow color. The second one will not have that because second one is disabled. So other than disabled, it will apply. For disabled, you can apply a different color. That means input disabled. If it is input disabled, background color as gray. Then for disabled, it will have gray color. Other than that, all others another. This you can define by using this selector. Now we have one more option people usually call universal selector, but we don't need that because root is enough actually. So universal selector, you can refer that with asterisk. Asterisk is also equal to root. That means it will apply to all. That means if I put asterisk and font family, so Arial, it is going to apply to all. It is equivalent to root. It will apply to everywhere. Everywhere it will apply that option and it will define. We call this as universal selector. So these are all the different types of selectors, and these are all the various types of selectors. So used in our CSS. So these are different categories of selectors working with various types of selectors. I have given you all this in the notes, all the selectors with example. You go through them. Now once we are done with the selectors, now we have to understand about how do we work with. So different styles now. We will learn about CSS rules. What are the basic CSS rules? And we will learn about CSS units, how to define the units, and we learn about CSS effects. different types of effects that we will see in our next session, right? Tomorrow we will see about that. Tomorrow we will continue with rules, units, and other types of effects. Okay, right.